4. Dangerous lies that destroy your power. Machiavelli's warning. They have told you that being kind will protect you, that honesty will always be rewarded, that patience will eventually bring justice. But Machiavelli would whisper a different truth into your ear, a truth that burns rather than comforts. He would tell you that these ideas repeated endlessly by the weak are not virtues. They are cages. You have been trained to believe in them because they make you harmless, predictable, and easy to control. Yet, behind every empire, every successful mind, every unbreakable individual, there is a moment when they dared to question these illusions. Tonight, I will reveal the 4 dangerous lies that silently destroy your power. The same lies Machiavelli warned princes about centuries ago, and the same ones that still poison modern souls. Ask yourself, when was the last time you acted not from fear, but from strategy? When was the last time you chose to see the world not as it should be, but as it is? The path to strength begins when illusion ends. These lies are not only around you, they live inside you. They speak every time you hesitate, every time you seek approval, every time you doubt your right to stand tall in a world that rewards cunning more than goodness. Machiavelli never glorified cruelty. He exposed the game. His writings were not a hymn to darkness, but a mirror showing humanity as it truly behaves when stripped of masks. In this journey, I will not flatter your comfort. I will challenge it. You will see how each of these 4 lies, that people are good by nature, that honesty guarantees respect, that forgiveness always frees you, and that humility equals virtue, quietly sabotages your inner empire. You will learn how these moral poisons disguise themselves as wisdom, how they infiltrate your thinking, and how they slowly dismantle your confidence until you mistake submission for peace. But here is the paradox. When you expose these lies, you do not become evil, you become free. When you see the truth, you no longer act out of reaction, but intention. You no longer serve appearances, but results. Machiavelli believed that power was not about domination. It was about clarity, about seeing things without illusion, and acting from that vision. The weak call it manipulation. The wise call it mastery. If you have ever felt betrayed by people you trusted, ignored when you were honest, or punished for your kindness, this video will give you language for what your soul already sensed. The world does not reward purity, it rewards perception. Stay until the end, because in the final minutes, I will reveal a secret Machiavelli never wrote explicitly, but lived through, a principle that transforms these warnings into liberation. Comment below these words. I choose truth over comfort. It will anchor you into this journey. And as you listen, remember, this is not a call to darkness. It is an awakening from naivety. Subscribe, like, and stay with me until the last revelation. Because once you hear these 4 lies exposed, you will never see human behavior, or your own, the same way again. To understand Machiavelli's warning, we must return to the 15th century, to Florence, a city of beauty and deceit, faith and blood. Behind its marble walls, politics was not a theater of virtue, but a battlefield of masks. Power shifted like shadows at sunset. One day you were praised as a savior, the next you were exiled or executed. It was in this storm that Niccolò Machiavelli observed mankind, not from books, but from betrayal. He saw how men spoke of morality while secretly plotting, how kindness was used as camouflage, and how the innocent were devoured by those who understood the true rules of human behavior. The world is not what it claims to be, he concluded, and the one who refuses to see this is destined to suffer. In his most infamous work, The Prince, Machiavelli did not invent manipulation, he unmasked it. He wrote not as a cynic, but as a doctor, describing the disease of idealism. He saw that societies depend on illusions to keep the masses calm, to make them obedient, to promise that morality governs outcomes. But in truth, outcomes are ruled by perception, strategy, and timing, the forces that shape the invisible architecture of power. Those who deny this truth do not escape it. They become its victims. That was his warning, wrapped in the language of pragmatism. Philosophically, His ideas broke the sacred link between ethics and success. Ancient thinkers like Plato imagined that justice would naturally triumph. Machiavelli shattered that illusion. He wrote that virtue, in its pure form, is powerless without intelligence, and intelligence is often condemned as evil because it exposes what others hide. For him, the good man who does not understand the world's nature is not noble, but naive. He is like a lamb preaching kindness in a forest of wolves, shocked when he is devoured. Psychologically, this truth is still alive in every human interaction. We wear masks, not only to deceive others, but to survive among them. We lie not because we love lies, but because truth, naked and raw, terrifies the social order. Civilization thrives on illusions, that governments act for justice, that people value honesty more than comfort, that relationships are built on sincerity. These are the modern temples of false virtue. Machiavelli's warning was not to destroy them, but to see them for what they are, structures of convenience, not truth. Centuries later, psychologists like Carl Jung would echo this insight, that facing the shadow is essential to wholeness. Machiavelli's political realism and Jung's psychological realism are reflections of the same mirror, the confrontation with what we prefer not to see. In nature, only awareness preserves life. The predator observes, the prey ignores. The wise human must learn the same law, to see without denial, to act without apology. So before we expose the 4 lies that destroy your power, understand this: Machiavelli's message is not about cruelty, but lucidity. It is about reclaiming your right to see the world as it is, unfiltered, unromantic, but real. And only from that reality can true power begin. Now that you understand where Machiavelli's mind was forged, not in theory but in the raw experience of betrayal and observation, it's time to step into the heart of his warning. Because the most dangerous forces in your life are not the enemies outside you, but the lies that whisper within you. These are not lies you consciously tell. They are the illusions you were trained to believe. Each one wears the mask of morality. Each one sounds noble, and yet, each one quietly dismantles your strength, your clarity, your very sense of sovereignty. Let's unveil the first. The first lie. People are good by nature. This is perhaps the most seductive illusion humanity has ever created. The belief that beneath the surface, people are naturally kind, altruistic, and fair. It comforts you to think that goodness is the default, that evil is the exception. But Machiavelli saw something different. He saw that goodness is not natural, it is conditional. It appears only when it benefits someone's interest. He wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers, not as an insult, but as a diagnosis. He understood that expecting virtue from people who are driven by fear, desire, and survival is like expecting a wolf to graze peacefully among sheep. When you believe people are good by nature, you lower your guard. You project your own honesty onto others, assuming they see the world as you do. But they don't. Each person acts from their private universe of motives, insecurities, and hungers. When you forget that, you become vulnerable. Machiavelli's realism was not pessimism, it was armor. To him, expecting corruption was not cynicism, but intelligence. It allowed him to anticipate betrayal before it struck, to navigate chaos with calm precision. Modern psychology agrees. Humans are not purely moral beings. We are adaptive creatures. We mirror what brings reward. We suppress what brings punishment. Kindness can emerge, but it is rarely unconditional. When survival is threatened, morality bends. This is not evil, it is nature. You don't blame the ocean for its storms. You learn to sail within them. Understanding this frees you from disappointment. You no longer hate humanity for its contradictions. You simply stop expecting angels in a world of strategists. To reclaim your power, begin here. Stop assuming people are what they appear to be. Watch how they act under pressure, not when they are comfortable. Observe how they treat those who cannot benefit them. That is their true nature. Once you see this, you can finally choose your allies with intelligence rather than illusion. Because in a world of masks, awareness is your only protection. The second lie. Honesty guarantees respect. This lie has destroyed more careers, relationships and reputations than open deceit ever could. You were taught that telling the truth, no matter what, makes you noble. But in the real world, truth does not automatically create respect. It often provokes resentment. Machiavelli understood that the human ego fears truth when it challenges comfort. Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand, he wrote, meaning people respect appearance more than essence. The man who speaks the truth too openly becomes a threat to those who live by illusion. Society doesn't reward honesty. It rewards diplomacy. Truth is powerful, but like fire, it must be contained and directed. The blunt truth-teller who exposes everything is like a man carrying a torch into a room full of dry paper. He will burn everything, including himself. Machiavelli advised rulers to master the art of selective honesty, reveal what serves the mission, conceal what provokes unnecessary conflict. In this way, truth becomes a tool of power rather than a weapon of self-destruction. In modern terms, think of your workplace, your social life, even your family. How often has brutal honesty cost someone their peace or position? How often has silence spoken louder than confession? The mature mind understands that truth is sacred, and sacred things must be protected, not thrown before those who are not ready to handle them. A true Machiavellian thinker doesn't lie, he filters. He knows that timing and tone determine whether truth enlightens or destroys. Ask yourself, when you speak, do you seek clarity or validation? Because often, we claim to be honest when we are merely seeking emotional release. That is not wisdom, it is indulgence. Power requires discipline, even in speech. As Machiavelli would say, control the narrative, and you control perception. Control perception, and you control reality. The third lie, forgiveness always frees you. This is a lie wrapped in holiness. Forgiveness, we are told, is the final act of liberation. But Machiavelli would have asked, liberation for whom? There is a difference between inner peace and strategic amnesia. To forgive blindly is to let the offender rewrite the story. It may soothe your conscience, but it also signals weakness to the calculating eye. In politics, in love, in business, those who forgive too quickly are seen not as noble, but as manipulable. Forgiveness, in its true form, must be paired with memory. The one who forgets becomes prey to repetition. Machiavelli saw power not as vengeance, but as awareness. He would say, forgive if it keeps your spirit light, but never forget what the event revealed about human nature. Forgetting the lesson is not compassion, it is self-betrayal. Psychologically, people use forgiveness as anesthesia to avoid the discomfort of anger or confrontation. But in doing so, they suppress essential energy, the very fire that protects boundaries. True forgiveness is not erasing the past. It is understanding it so deeply that it can no longer control you. When you forgive consciously, you don't lose strength. You reclaim it. When you forgive automatically, you give your power away. The wise ruler forgives only when it reinforces his authority. The wise soul forgives only when it preserves inner balance. Anything beyond that is spiritual vanity disguised as virtue. So the next time you are tempted to forgive instantly, pause. Ask, am I forgiving to heal or to avoid seeing the truth? That question alone will reveal whether your peace is real or borrowed. The fourth lie, humility equals virtue. This lie has enslaved more powerful minds than any army ever could. Humility, as commonly preached, is the most refined form of psychological control. You were taught to dim your light so others feel comfortable, to hide your talent so no one feels threatened, to apologize for existing too strongly. But Machiavelli knew that modesty, when exaggerated, is a tool of domination used by those who fear confident individuals. A ruler who kneels too low cannot inspire loyalty. A mind that constantly belittles itself cannot command respect. True humility is not weakness. It is silent confidence. But society has inverted its meaning. We now glorify smallness and call it virtue. We teach children to be agreeable rather than independent, to seek approval rather than mastery. This conditioning creates adults who fear confrontation, who confuse self-respect with arrogance, who shrink when they should stand. Machiavelli warned against this moral manipulation. He wrote that appearance often decides fate. And nothing appears weaker than a person who cannot own their power. Look around. The world is not run by the humble. It is run by the bold, not necessarily the cruel, but the decisive, the ones who dare to occupy space unapologetically. The irony is that when you stop pretending to be small, you actually serve the world better. Your strength becomes an example, not a threat. Your confidence inspires others to awaken theirs. But as long as you believe that humility means hiding, your potential remains imprisoned. Ask yourself, when did you last suppress your opinion to avoid judgment? When did you fake modesty to appear likable? These are moments of self-erasure. The Machiavellian spirit within you must rise and say, no more. Not arrogance, but clarity. Not pride, but presence. You can be respectful and powerful at once. Remember, the lion does not apologize for its roar. Now pause and reflect. Out of these 4 lies, which one still governs your mind? The illusion that people are good, the fantasy that honesty brings respect, the belief that forgiveness always heals, or the deception that humility is the highest virtue? Write in the comments which one you recognize in your own life and how it has shaped your decisions. Because the first step to reclaiming your power is not action, it is awareness. By now, the illusions have begun to tremble. You've seen the 4 lies that quietly govern the psychology of weakness, the myths of goodness, honesty, forgiveness, and humility. But to truly transform, you must go deeper, beyond ideas, into perception. Because these lies do not survive through logic, they survive through emotional comfort. They promise safety in a world that punishes clarity. And that is why Machiavelli's greatest warning was not about politics, but about human nature itself. The way we willingly trade power for belonging, truth for approval, and vision for the illusion of peace. Let's go further into this hidden terrain, the lie beneath all lies, the desire to be seen as good. Every illusion that destroys your power grows from one psychological root, the desperate need to be perceived as good. Humanity's greatest addiction is not pleasure, but moral validation. From childhood, you are rewarded for obedience, not intelligence. You are praised for politeness, not discernment. You learn quickly that acceptance comes from conformity. So you begin to sculpt a version of yourself that fits, one that is admired, agreeable, safe. That persona becomes your prison. Machiavelli understood that the desire to appear good is often stronger than the desire to be good. That's why entire societies build systems around virtue signaling. Words, causes, gestures that create the illusion of morality while concealing hunger for approval and control. He saw that most men prefer the comfort of being liked to the freedom of being true, and that is why they never rise. This is not cynicism. It is a profound truth of psychology. Your nervous system craves belonging, but power begins when you choose truth over belonging. When you stop trying to appear righteous and instead become real. The one who chooses truth becomes lonely for a while, but later respected forever. The one who clings to appearances is celebrated briefly, but forgotten quickly. Ask yourself, do you act from conscience or from the fear of what others will think? Because the invisible hand that controls the masses is not tyranny, it is the human need for approval. Break that, and you become untouchable. The modern illusion, the myth of balance. In our time, the ancient lies have been repackaged with soft words like balance and well-being. We are told that to be powerful is to be dangerous, and to be balanced is to be harmless. But Machiavelli would tell you that balance, when worshipped, becomes paralysis. Life is not balance, it is rhythm. It moves in cycles of intensity and rest, of ambition and retreat. The lie of balance teaches you to suppress your natural fire in fear of seeming too much. But the flame that offends the timid is the same flame that warms the world. The psychological trick is subtle. Society praises moderation not to protect your peace, but to limit your reach. A calm man is easy to manage. A passionate one is unpredictable. Machiavelli admired those who could embrace their inner contradictions, those who could be calm and fierce, kind and strategic, gentle and ruthless when required. That duality is the mark of mastery. The greatest figures in history, from emperors to philosophers, were not balanced. They were integrated. They knew when to bend and when to strike. The danger is not extremity, but ignorance of your own extremes. To reclaim power, you must stop fearing your intensity. Harness it, refine it, and direct it like lightning. Balance is not peace. It is control over chaos. The hidden enemy, the cult of positivity. Today, another illusion rules quietly, the tyranny of forced optimism. You are told to stay positive, to manifest good energy, to avoid negativity. But Machiavelli would have laughed. He understood that denying darkness gives it power. He would say, "You cannot master what you refuse to see. When you blindfold yourself with positivity, you lose awareness of danger. You ignore the signs of betrayal, the whispers of intuition, the lessons of pain." The cult of positivity turns the human mind into a fragile bubble, unable to face reality's storms. True strength is not smiling through chaos. It is standing in it with open eyes. To see clearly is not to despair, it is to be alive. Every great strategist, every enlightened thinker, every mystic understood this balance. Embrace both shadow and light, because both teach you. Carl Jung echoed this centuries later when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That is the essence of Machiavellian wisdom. Not cruelty, but consciousness. The dangerous lie of modernity is that discomfort means something is wrong. But often, discomfort is the sole signal that you are finally seeing the truth. The trap of emotional morality. Another subtle illusion that drains your strength is the idea that emotion equals morality. That if something feels bad, it must be bad. Society has conditioned you to worship your feelings, to let them dictate your actions. But Machiavelli would call that servitude. He believed emotions are servants of strategy, not its masters. When you act only from emotion, you become predictable, and the predictable man can be controlled. Emotional morality is the reason people defend their abusers, forgive too soon, or sabotage their own plans. They confuse comfort with goodness, peace with truth. They think that avoiding confrontation is noble, when it's often cowardice wearing a saint's mask. Machiavelli's philosophy reminds you that morality without wisdom is chaos. Feel deeply, yes, but never let feelings replace discernment. Power does not come from being emotionless. It comes from being emotionally intelligent, to feel anger but express calm, to feel fear but move forward anyway, to feel compassion without surrendering judgment. That is the art of ruling yourself. The final mask, the lie of universal equality. There is a comforting illusion that all people are equal, in worth, in will, in understanding. But Machiavelli saw that nature itself rejects equality. He observed that hierarchy is a law of life. Some lead, others follow. Some perceive, others are blind. Some create, others consume. Pretending otherwise is not compassion, it is denial. When everyone claims to be equal in power, no one takes responsibility. The world then descends into chaos, ruled not by the wise but by the loudest. Equality of dignity, yes, but equality of strength, never. Every human has a different capacity for awareness, discipline, and courage. To deny this truth is to blind yourself to reality. Machiavelli's wisdom was never about arrogance, it was about recognition. Know your strengths, know others' limits, and you will no longer expect kingship from those who prefer slavery. This realization is liberating, not cruel. When you stop trying to equalize everything, you begin to optimize it. You give up resentment and start building strategy. You stop demanding fairness and start creating advantage. Life is not a classroom, it is a battlefield. Some are born with sharper instincts, others must forge them through pain. Either way, pretending equality exists only keeps you small. These deeper layers reveal that the four lies are not just moral, they are structural. They shape entire civilizations. They convince men to disarm their minds and call it virtue. They create cultures where strategy is condemned and ignorance is praised. And yet, you were never meant to live as a domesticated creature. The fire in you, the one that feels uncomfortable, ambitious, questioning, that is not sin. That is your nature reclaiming itself. Comment below these words. I choose truth, even when it hurts. It will remind you that awakening is not comfort. It is confrontation. The false comfort of illusion will always feel easier. but the clarity of truth will make you unstoppable. Because Machiavelli's hidden message was never about deception, it was about sight. The ability to see beneath appearances, to read intentions, to anticipate what others deny. He understood something most never grasp, that morality without realism is weakness, and realism without morality is corruption. The rarest power in this world is to unite both, to see clearly, yet act with conscience. In the next part, you will learn how to transform this awareness into action, how to live with power without losing peace, how to practice strategic compassion, how to move through this world awake while others sleep. Because truth without application is just philosophy. Power, in Machiavelli's eyes, was never meant to be hoarded. It was meant to be embodied. Awareness without embodiment is just contemplation. You have seen the illusions, felt their weight inside you, recognized their whispers in your daily life. But Machiavelli's wisdom was never meant to be read in silence. It was meant to be lived. The difference between knowing and mastering lies in your ability to act with precision, to apply understanding not as rebellion but as refinement. You do not need to become ruthless to be strong. You only need to become conscious of when to use ruthlessness as medicine. Just as a surgeon must sometimes cut to heal, you must sometimes confront to grow. This is not darkness, it is clarity. In this part, we descend from philosophy to strategy. You will learn how to detect these lies in real life, how to dismantle them, and how to replace them with principles that restore inner power. Remember this, no empire, inner or outer, can rise on naivety. Every transformation begins when you stop wishing for a fair world and start mastering the real one. Step 1. The discipline of observation. The first practice is simple but rare. Learn to observe before you act. Machiavelli believed that perception is power in its purest form. Most people rush to speak, to react, to prove. But true strength is the stillness between stimulus and response. Every time you pause before reacting, you break the spell of manipulation. You begin to see the invisible currents moving around you. Tone, motive, fear, desire. Train your mind like a strategist studies an opponent. In conversation, watch not just what people say but why they say it. Listen to hesitation, detect insecurity, recognize emotional leverage. The one who observes controls the narrative, because while others drown in emotion, you will see patterns. You will start to recognize who hides envy behind politeness, who disguises ambition as humility, who praises to manipulate. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors those who are vigilant in adversity. Vigilance is not paranoia, it is awareness sharpened by reality. Practice this daily. Speak less. Notice more. Write what you notice at the end of each day. Your journal will soon reveal a map of recurring dynamics. Who drains your energy, who strengthens it, who mirrors your values, and who only mirrors your usefulness. That knowledge is the beginning of mastery. Step 2. Emotional detachment as power. The world teaches you to respond emotionally, to take offense, to defend, to justify. But Machiavelli's art was emotional neutrality. He observed that the one who stays calm holds the reins of perception. When others lose control, they reveal their motives. When you remain still, they reveal themselves completely. Detachment does not mean coldness. It means sovereignty. It is the ability to feel deeply without drowning. You practice this by transforming emotion into information. When someone angers you, don't explode. Study. What do they fear? What power are they trying to reclaim through provocation? When you feel jealousy, don't hide it. Analyze it. What unmet desire within you seeks acknowledgement? Every emotion is a coded message from your unconscious, revealing where you have not yet mastered yourself. In every conflict, ask, what is the purpose of my response? If it's to prove worth, stay silent. If it's to protect truth, act strategically. Power comes not from suppressing emotion, but from decoding it. Because the mind that controls emotion controls outcomes. Step 3. Strategic kindness. Kindness is not weakness when guided by awareness. Machiavelli himself wrote that mercy, when used wisely, can secure loyalty more effectively than fear. But mercy without discernment invites abuse. The secret is not to stop being kind, but to make your kindness intentional, a choice, not a compulsion. When you give consciously. Ask yourself, am I giving to uplift or to be seen as good? If your giving seeks approval, it becomes emotional servitude. If it arises from power, it becomes influence. People sense the difference. They respect the one who chooses generosity, but exploit the one who needs it to feel worthy. Practice delayed kindness. Wait before offering help or advice. Observe who still respects you when you say no. The ones who withdraw were never aligned with your truth. They were aligned with your utility. Machiavelli would have said, do good only when it strengthens your position or your soul. Anything else is self-depletion dressed as virtue. Step 4. The law of silence. Silence, for Machiavelli, was not absence of speech. It was control of revelation. He admired the man who could hold his thoughts like a blade, unsheathed only with purpose. In modern life, this means learning to protect your intentions, your plans, and your inner life. When you overshare, you invite interference. When you stay silent, you build mystique. And mystique is power. The practice is simple. Reveal less. Let results speak before explanations. Resist the impulse to justify yourself. Notice how silence changes the behavior of those around you. Some will grow uneasy because silence exposes their insecurity. Others will grow respectful because silence signals depth. Each word you speak has energetic weight. The more you speak, the lighter your authority becomes. When you reserve your voice, your presence grows heavier. In psychology, this is known as perceived value. The less accessible something is, the more it is desired. So speak with precision, act with restraint, and let silence become your armor. Step 5. Practicing strategic forgiveness. Forgiveness, when applied with wisdom, becomes one of the most powerful tools in existence. Not the forgiveness that forgets, but the forgiveness that frees you without releasing awareness. Machiavelli understood that resentment consumes energy, but he also knew that forgetting lessons invites repetition. The practice is to forgive internally, not socially. You don't need to announce it, prove it, or dramatize it. You simply decide, I will no longer carry emotional debt, but you keep the knowledge of what occurred as data, not bitterness. Write it down if needed, the behavior, the motive, the consequence. Review it like a strategist reviews a battle. Then release the emotion, not the information. When you forgive this way, you become emotionally weightless, yet intellectually fortified. The offender loses power over your heart, but remains recorded in your mental archives. You evolve from reaction to observation. That is the forgiveness of the wise, calm, complete, and irreversible. Step 6. Redefining humility. Humility, in Machiavelli's sense, is mastery of perception. It is knowing your strength so deeply that you have no need to prove it. False humility, however, is performance. A learned smallness to protect the comfort of others. The powerful must learn to express quiet authority, a presence that speaks even when silent. Here is the practice. Next time you enter a room, do not shrink. Do not fill space with noise but with energy. Stand still, breathe slowly, and let your body speak self-assurance. In conversations, replace self-deprecation with neutrality. Instead of saying, I'm not that great, say, I'm improving every day. It is not arrogance. It is accuracy. Humility means remembering that you are neither above nor below. You simply are, aware and capable. When you embody this truth, people respond differently. You will notice that those who once dismissed you begin to listen, because authenticity, when anchored in quiet confidence, commands respect without demand. Step 7. Learning the art of absence. Machiavelli taught that absence can be as powerful as presence. The one who is always available loses impact. To build psychological weight, you must learn to withdraw strategically from conversations, from social circles, even from digital noise. When you vanish, you allow others to feel your absence. You create space for your value to echo. This is not manipulation. It is rhythm. In nature, tides retreat before they return. Trees shed leaves before they bloom again. Absence resets perception. Practice disappearing for short intervals, not in bitterness, but in recalibration. Withdraw from gossip, from pointless arguments, from situations that dilute your energy. When you return, do so with renewed focus and fewer words. Your silence will speak louder than any explanation. Step 8. The power of precision. Machiavelli wrote that the greatest minds achieve power, not through force, but through precision. Every decision, every word, every gesture becomes intentional. You can practice this by simplifying your life. Fewer commitments, fewer distractions, fewer explanations. Choose where to direct your energy. Not everything deserves your attention. Each morning, ask yourself, what are the 3 actions today that truly build my empire, inner or outer? Then discard the rest. Precision creates momentum. The undisciplined man chases everything and masters nothing, but the precise man moves slower and wins faster. In a world addicted to noise, clarity is revolutionary. Step 9. Cultivating inner sovereignty. Inner sovereignty means becoming your own ruler. No ideology, no opinion, no trend governs your peace. Machiavelli believed that true freedom begins not with independence from others, but with mastery over the self. This requires solitude, not loneliness, but sacred time alone to hear your own thoughts. Each day, spend at least 15 minutes in stillness. No screens, no input, just you and your mind. Observe what thoughts arise, which ones are yours, and which are borrowed from others. This practice will reveal how much of your identity was built from imitation. Once you reclaim authorship of your thoughts, external judgment loses its grip. You stop reacting to the world. You begin to orchestrate your own. Step 10. Transforming knowledge into action. All the wisdom in the world means nothing without practice. So choose one of the lies you've identified. Maybe you forgive too easily, or crave approval, or over-explain your intentions. Spend 1 week challenging that habit consciously. Keep a record of how your environment shifts as you shift. You'll see the world respond differently, because power is not an abstract force. It's behavioral energy. The Machiavellian way is not about domination. It's about precision, awareness, and disciplined action. Each small adjustment ripples outward. Soon, you will speak less, but influence more. Give less, but impact more. Expect less, but achieve more. Because the rarest power today is not control over others. It's control over your own reactions. When you integrate these practices, your life begins to change in silence. People won't understand at first. They'll say you've become distant, colder, mysterious. But what they're really witnessing is your alignment. You're no longer leaking energy through people-pleasing, oversharing, and blind forgiveness. You're redirecting that energy toward building your inner kingdom. This is how Machiavelli's warning transforms from survival into sovereignty. You stop being the pawn of moral illusions and become the quiet player who sees the whole board. You'll find that peace does not come from compliance. It comes from clarity. And remember, the true Machiavellian mind is not cruel. It is awake. There comes a point, after the illusions are broken and the strategies have been learned, when the silence of understanding becomes louder than all the noise of the world. You begin to see life as Machiavelli saw it, not as a battle between good and evil, but as a dance between awareness and ignorance. And suddenly, you realize something profound. You were never powerless. You were only misled. Conditioned to see your sensitivity as weakness, your intelligence as arrogance, your caution as paranoia. But the truth is, every trait the world mocked in you was simply power misunderstood. The same empathy that made you feel too much is the instrument of insight. The same solitude that made you feel lonely is the cradle of perception. The same silence that once felt heavy now becomes your protection. This is the transformation Machiavelli hinted at, not to corrupt you, but to awaken you from the illusions that bind gentle souls. You see, his warnings were never an invitation to cruelty. They were an invitation to lucidity. He wrote not for tyrants, but for thinkers, for those who could sense the hidden tension between virtue and survival. He understood that in every age, the naive suffer not because they are bad, but because they are blind. They confuse goodness with safety. They believe that fairness is a law of nature, when it is merely a moral wish. And that blindness is what Machiavelli called the most dangerous lie, the refusal to see life as it is. To live wisely is not to abandon morality. It is to apply it consciously. It is to know that kindness without boundaries becomes exploitation, that truth without strategy becomes self-destruction, that humility without confidence becomes erasure, that forgiveness without discernment becomes surrender. You are not asked to stop being light. You are asked to stop letting darkness feed on it. The world doesn't need you to be softer. It needs you to be sovereign, to love with intelligence, to give with awareness, to lead with compassion, but never from illusion. And this, in the end, is Machiavelli's paradox, the one truth that redeems his misunderstood philosophy. Real power and real goodness are not opposites. They are twins, but they can only coexist in the soul that has faced reality without flinching. When you see through the lies that destroy your power, your kindness becomes strength, not submission. Your forgiveness becomes wisdom, not weakness. Your humility becomes grace, not guilt. And your honesty becomes clarity, not chaos. Look at history. Every figure who changed the world carried a Machiavellian awareness, whether they knew it or not. Christ, Buddha, Marcus Aurelius, Gandhi, all spoke of love, but all saw through illusion. They forgave strategically. They spoke when silence would no longer protect truth. They embodied discipline more than sentiment. The highest morality is never naive. It is enlightened. It sees the game but refuses to play dirty. It knows manipulation exists but chooses mastery instead. It is gentle but immovable, and that is where you must arrive, not as a cold strategist, but as a conscious one. You are not meant to dominate. You are meant to discern, to walk through the noise of deception with a mind that cannot be swayed and a heart that cannot be bought. When you embody this balance, people around you begin to change, not because you control them, but because your energy becomes unshakable. You stop reacting to their chaos. You stop explaining your worth. You stop begging for understanding. You simply exist in truth, and truth carries its own authority. From this moment forward, understand that the true Machiavellian mind is not the manipulator. It is the awakened observer. It's the one who has seen behind the mask of human nature and still chooses to create, to build, to care, but without delusion. When you rise above the lies that enslave others, your presence itself becomes leadership. You no longer need to speak of power. You emanate it. People will sense it in your calm, in your eyes, in your lack of need for validation. They will feel that you no longer play the same game. And that is what makes you dangerous. The world will test you. It will try to seduce you back into comfort. It will tell you to soften your edges, to apologize for your intensity, to hide your intelligence under modesty. But remember Machiavelli's silent lesson. Those who dilute their truth to be accepted end up ruled by those who never do. Stand firm. Be kind but not compliant. Be wise but not cynical. Be confident but never arrogant. The strength you carry within you is ancient. It belongs to those who have dared to see clearly in a world built on illusion. Now, before this video ends, take one breath, a deep one. Feel your heartbeat. That is your inner empire. Everything you need already lives there: reason, courage, restraint, and fire. You do not need permission to rule your life. You only need clarity. And clarity begins when you refuse to believe the lies that kept you small. So remember these 4 truths, rewritten from the ruins of their lies. People are not good or bad. They are driven. Learn to read their drives and you will never be deceived. Honesty is not about exposure. It is about precision. Speak only when it strengthens truth. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is learning. Release emotion, keep wisdom. And humility is not shrinking. It is standing tall without shouting. These are not Machiavelli's words, but they are his spirit. Filtered through time, reborn in you. You are no longer a pawn of moral illusion. You are the strategist of your own existence. If this message has awakened something in you, write it in the comments. I choose power through awareness. It is more than a sentence. It is a declaration to the world and to yourself. And before you leave, remember to subscribe. To stay within this circle of clarity where philosophy meets psychology and ancient wisdom becomes practical mastery. Like the video if it resonated, share it if it revealed something deep within you, and never forget, the real darkness is not in others. It is in refusing to see, and the real light is not in fantasy. It is in understanding reality and still choosing to create beauty from it. Machiavelli's warning was not meant to frighten the wise. It was meant to awaken them. And tonight you have heard it. The question is no longer whether you believe him. The question is, will you live awake or die asleep?